Hello world, boating world. Say hello, Joseph.
Hello.
Hello, Joseph. Say hello, Kenneth.
Hello, Kenneth.
Hello, Kenneth. Anyway, we got a 5.7 Volvo Penta, I believe, and I'm not sure what year it's out of. But the customer, we pulled it out. The engine was bad, and we gave him a price to do a rebuilt long block. He took it somewhere else. It took him a long time. He wasn't very pleased with what he got as far as service and price over there. They did do what appears to be a really clean job. They spent a lot of time painting and cleaning parts, and I'll tell you, that's a nice thing to have. You know, you pay a lot of money and you want good, clean parts, okay? And, you know, new filters, of course, but things like the fuel pump, I mean, I can't tell if it's new or not. I don't think it is based on the old dry rotted gasket between it. So cleaning and repainting the fuel pump and the old antiquated starter that should be a gear reduction starter, in my opinion, is not rebuilding a motor, it's repainting a motor. And of course they put a new long block, so we know that. And, you know, important things like the power steering cap, so that's new. And, you know, a real pretty power steering pump. I mean, like I said, all this looks nice. It's gonna look nice in the engine bay, and it's certainly an asset to do a job this well. I mean, painting 9 tons of paint on everything is really a good protective idea. If you're going to be in salt water, you want a lot of paint on there, and you want a good paint job so that it doesn't corrode. I believe they replaced this exhaust manifold, so that's a good thing. I don't know that they replaced the risers. There looks to be some rust coming out of there, so I'd have to say that either the risers are probably original and the manifolds are replaced. I don't know that I necessarily agree with that. I think the manifolds were cracked, is why they did that. And anyway, it looks pretty good. You know, they got a standard issue oil filter on there. And you can see the distributor's not painted. We did try to start this motor. We checked it. It was full of oil. So we cranked it over a little bit. And we had hoped that they had primed it because it was completely assembled. But we just didn't know. And we finally put some gas to it, and it backfired and didn't want to run. And it had like a valve hanging open on it. It was coughing back through the carburetor. And so we worked on it about 30 minutes or so, and we got it cranked up. We restabbed the distributor, we double checked the number 1, and just some very minor things. We took the power steering belt off so that it wouldn't pump any fluid, although I'm sure the power steering is empty. And again, I just got to comment on how shiny a paint job that is. I hope that makes it last a lot longer. I see some things though here that we got this real shiny paint job, this real professional job, lots of new nuts and bolts that it probably needed or just made it easier for the technician. And I mean, right down to some brand new carburetor bolts. You know how those things will blow out on you, pun intended. So we got this automotive carburetor on here. I mean, and we got this 157-year-old starter, right? Like I said, it needs to be a gear reduction starter. We also have the hose here, which is not a Tygon hose, but it's acceptable, I suppose, from the fuel pump. In case it blows, it's supposed to be hooked to the carburetor, but since it's not a marine carburetor, it doesn't have a place to hook it. The air assembly on this one was not designed with a port on it, so we're going to have to makeshift something to get that hose attached to this, so in case the carburetor has a problem or the fuel pump goes out, it will pump oil through that and fuel and dump it into the carburetor like it's supposed to. But this is not a marine carburetor, so it's missing what's called the tube, the vent tube, what are we going to call them, deflectors that come up here that will force the gas. If the gas comes out of this, it'll dump it inside the engine, cause the engine to run poorly instead of dumping it outside the engine onto the intake manifold where it can puddle and ignite and burn your nice, pretty, shiny paint job up on your motor. And ruin your weekend and really piss your wife off after spending, you know, $4,000 or $5,000 to have all this pretty paint. Anyway, are y'all happy with the paint job on this motor that they did? Yes. Are you happy with it? I'm giving hell about this paint job. But I really hope it looks like a good quality job, ultimately. And I think it's going to run fine for the customer. He's going to be very happy. We started it briefly. It ran a little shitty at first. And the rocker arms were not, they were clacking like it hadn't been primed properly or well enough. So we just let it idle for a minute. That went away like it should. But really just prime them more and you won't have that problem. You might have 1 or 2 click, but not all of them going clack, 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 making a god-awful amount of noise. Joseph over there is our ignition switch. We got the customer brought us this batteries here. Both of them had 11 volts in them. When he dropped them off, looks like they're brand new. We're gonna charge them, we're gonna hook they're okay. Joseph, hook the ignition up, turn the key on, I call it. Turn the key on, Joseph. Yeah, there, the key is on. Now we got a little extra gas in the intake, so she's a little flooded probably because we primed the carburetor through this hole and through this hole. We dumped some gas in there, and when you dump too much gas, you'll see it pouring out down there around the jets, and we did that, and so we kind of flooded it just a hair. So it might be a little tricky to start. It might be a little bucky. Hit it. There we go. She starts up. Let's start it up again now that it's not flooded, and let's see if she starts a lot easier. And we're revving it. That sounds like we're revving the hell out of it. Man, that's probably 1,500 RPM. There we go. Well, oops, it might be out of gas. Now I see a little smoke burn off. That's from the oil on the paint. Yeah, she's out of gas. So she ain't no gas friendly. Go ahead and try it one more time. It's just gonna die again right away. So she's out of gas. So those carburetor bowls were full, and that's how long it'll run with full carburetor bowls. Ultimately, I give it 5 stars. Let's give him 5 stars. And 4 of those is for the paint. Just kidding. It looks like it's going to be a good deal. So we like to start them up on the floor before we put them in, or on our run stand, to make sure that when we go to put this thing in, we haven't just wasted half a day's worth of labor and a bunch of resources to find out we got to work on it. So here, we worked on it outside of the boat. We got it running. We're confident when we put it in, so long as we've got good fuel in the boat, this thing should start up and run as well as it can here. From there, we'll load test it in our 23,000 gallons of man-made lake back there. We'll load her up. We'll check her temperature, shift gears, all that, make sure the outdrive is serviced, and the customer should be ready to go.